following is a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production.
We are back. Bock score from Nedick's at the Old Garden on 49th Street. I'm here with George Case III. How are you, George?
Good evening.
Good. And David Hubler is here.
Yes, good evening, all.
And the man himself is here, Hal Bock. I'm going to ask you, Hal, as I so much enjoy doing this. Hal, what's the score?
Well, guys, the score this week, it's funny. I wrote a column about Colin Kaepernick's lawsuit being settled by the NFL, which is unusual. The NFL usually likes to go to war with people who sue them, but they backed off this time, and Kaepernick and Eric Reed got a nice lump sum of money in that collusion suit. But almost as soon as I wrote that, it was outdated, and that's because we had Zion Williamson, the Duke star, go down in the first half minute of a big game against North Carolina when his shoe exploded and he sprained his knee. Now, I thought to myself, my God, how perfect for our discussion on Tuesday night about a shoe exploding when we have George Case III, who had his career in athletic footwear, to explain to us how a sneaker could explode, certainly for a player like Zion Williamson, who I'm sure had the best sneakers you could buy. But that was my plan this week, was to talk about Kaepernick, but I'm certainly happy to yield the floor to George to talk about the exploding shoe. So, George, you can take it away.
Yeah, thanks very much, Hal. Alan, have you joined us?
Yeah, I just signed in.
Oh, welcome, Alan. Alan Blumkin is here, and if you hadn't missed it, George is going to fill us in about the Nike shoe that exploded.
Oh, the kid at Duke, yeah.
Yeah, George,
okay.
If you would.
All right.
Yeah, well, what I'd like to do, I appreciate it, Hal. You know, the timing was really interesting. I know that you were going to write the article, and you did, about Colin Kaepernick, and we had talked earlier on a podcast about Kaepernick and Nike, and we can certainly, get into that at some point. But the situation that happened at Duke with Williamson was really probably the worst nightmare of anybody that was ever in the athletic shoe business. To have a shoe explode, which literally it did, it just ripped apart and caused an injury to such a great player, is something that, in your worst nightmare, you would not want to have happen on national television in such a game between Duke and North Carolina. Now, I can tell you something that happened to me just the other day. A friend of mine called me who used to work for me, and he called me about talking about this whole episode. And he said, George, do you remember what happened with us? And I said, as a matter of fact, I certainly do. It happened to us in that we had brought out a new basketball shoe. It had not been really tested, but we put it on some of our college teams for preseason training to see whether or not the shoe would really hold up. Well, about 1 week into practice, I get a call from one of the basketball coaches on our staff from one of our schools. He said, hey, George, we have a big, big problem. I said, oh, my God, what's that? He said, the toes are ripping out. And he said, you got to do something. So I called up our chemist at our factory. I said, hey, look, here's our problem. And they said, well, here's what we can do as a short-term solution. Run to a hardware store and get some crazy glue and put it on the inside of the shoe where it's ripping apart, and that'll hold it together for a while. I said, oh, my God. I said, you mean to tell me that's what I got to do? They said, well, in the quick fix, that's what you have to do. So I called the coach back, And about a day later, he calls me back, and he said, hey, thanks a lot for that solution. Now I got crazy glue all over my desk. So this is one of the crazy things that happened. But, you know, in the case of what we did, at least it was in preseason practice. There weren't any glare of cameras and national exposure. So, you know, I sympathize with, with the player because he actually got hurt. But I can tell you probably the shoe was either not tested thoroughly or did have some kind of a weakness, and he was so big and he's so fast and so strong, he goes to make that cut, and his foot jams down, and the shoe just rips out. So it's possible that that's what happened. It's also possible that now Nike's going to take a look at that particular shoe. After all, Coach K at Duke is a multi-million-dollar endorser of Nike, as is Roy Williams at North Carolina. So there's millions of dollars at stake here. Nike's stock the next day, from what I understand, took a real hit. So, you know, Nike's got a real problem. They've got to overcome it. And then we also talked a few months ago about the Louisville situation, what happened there with Pitino and Adidas. And I'm sure, knowing the competitive nature of these coaches and schools, that the Louisville staff is going to go to any of these high school kids and say, hey, you want to go to Duke or you want to go to North Carolina, maybe you're going to have a problem because those Nike shoes blow out. So here's our alternative, thought being that come to Louisville and we'll put you out in Adidas and they won't blow up. So, you know, that's just the nature of the beast. And I can give you one other quick story, and this happened back in the 70s. Ralph Sampson was the National Player of the Year, heavily recruited by all the colleges. Ralph had worn our shoes in high school. He told Joe Hall, the coach at University of Kentucky, and Terry Holland, the coach at Virginia, that he was going to wear pro Keds. And the fact is that Louisville, at the time, the University of Kentucky, was a Converse school. They wore Converse shoes. And University of Virginia was an Adidas school. They wore Adidas shoes. However, both coaches, in their efforts to try and recruit Ralph Sampson, said, Ralph, whatever you want to wear is okay with us. Well, they did that on their own, and this was long before anything with the millions and millions of dollars. I mean, there was no money involved. Ralph simply liked wearing our shoes, and they told him, go ahead, because they wanted to get him. Well, he winds up at Virginia, plays 3 years at University of Virginia. His senior year, Adidas came to Terry Holland and said, Coach, see if you can get Pro Keds to make just an all-white shoe with no logo on there, so it looks bad for us as a company to have our Adidas school wearing their star in Pro Keds basketball shoes. Terry Holland called me up. I said, Terry, no way. I said, either, you know, you stick by what our agreement was and Ralph wears our shoes with our logos, and that's what happened. So I can only tell you from experience that this thing is a nightmare for Nike, but the business is so big today, it's millions and millions of dollars that the schools are getting, millions of dollars that the coaches are getting, and the player at this point is not getting anything. Now, he is a number one projected draft choice, so some of the NBA players are telling him, don't play anymore for the season, wait till the end of the year and then declare, and you'll come out with millions of dollars in your contract. Now, Duke and Coach K just read the other day, Coach K says, Williamson's going to be back because he loves playing at Duke. Well, that could be. So we'll see how long he stays at Duke. But I just wanted to, put my 2 cents in because this is a situation that I've had from personal experience, and I can tell you that when I was doing it, it was a lot less problem because it was really not seen. But today you've got that problem with that Nike shoe just blowing out in the glare of cameras on national television. So, Hal, I thank you for giving me an opportunity to talk about it, but it is something very, unique, but potentially a huge, huge problem for Nike.
Those are great stories, George, and I appreciate you sharing them with us. The other part of the equation, this is a big deal. I mean, this kid, as you said, is projected as the number one draft choice if he declares. And if you were him and you went down and that knee gave out on you and you thought to yourself, oh, my God, what if I can't play? What if my knee is really badly hurt? Now, he was fortunate. It was just a minor sprain, but and he can come back probably in another week or so. But he has to think to himself, well, what if it was a major sprain? What if it was a torn tendon? It could have been. So he's got to weigh those options about playing at Duke or protecting himself for the draft. Now, there's another part of this equation. It just so happens that at the same time that Zion Williamson went down, the NBA was talking about returning to the rule which allows a player at age 18 to come into the NBA. Right now, they have a rule that you have the one and done rule, play a year and then go into the NBA. And that right now they're considering having kids come right out of high school the way Kobe Bryant did and some of the others. So that's part and parcel of this shoe explosion. I've never seen anything like this. This is, to me, it was the major story of the year so far in sports, to have this number one draft choice injured in a freak play like that. Dave Hubler, I wonder what you thought about it.
Yeah, I felt really bad for Zion. I mean, that was a terrible thing. And I'm just wondering, because when George was talking about years ago, and they did, a lot of those companies manufactured their shoes in the United States. It's hard to find a company now that doesn't manufacture them overseas. And I know that in so many cases, the quality assurance, the quality control is just not the same. And I'm wondering if that might have had something to do with it. I was thinking about that while George was talking. And, I mean, that to me, that was one of the first things I thought of. Well, there goes that, less than stellar quality control.
I have to tell you, this is Hal again. I have to tell you, I just went through an episode with an apparel company. I bought some clothes, and they were in a package. And when I opened the package, it was clearly inferior. The quality of the product was clearly inferior. And it had a name brand. It was a name brand. And I wrote to the company, and I said, what's going on here? I'm accustomed to quality stuff from your company. And they wound up refunding me the price of this apparel. But it was very disappointing to me because, you go shopping and you say, well, I'm going to go pick out a brand, like, for example, Nike, and you expect a certain level of quality, and then you open the package and the quality's not there. It's really disappointing. Ralph, what do you think about all this?
Well, I heard the bad news that Nike fired an 8-year-old in China. Is that true or not? The poor kid. He'd been supporting 6 people. I think, they should be held accountable for their product, no matter where it's produced. And it wouldn't surprise me if the kid that hurt his ankle, because he's not, probably will take him a while to become full strength. And as George will tell you, an ankle injury, even if you don't break it, can last an awful long time. I'm trying to think of the terrific basketball player who was from Yale, or his dad was from Yale. His dad was a football player.
Hill.
Calvin Hill?
Yeah, no, Calvin Hill's son.
Yeah, he had ankle injuries
throughout
his career that really hurt him. And it wouldn't surprise me if the college kid that got hurt ends up suing. If maybe his draft status will be affected by it. Who knows? But they should pay their obligation if their product doesn't stand up.
Then there's another side to this, which I failed to mention, but I should. And this is the debate that's gone on for a long, long time. College players are not paid. Now, George mentioned that Coach K and Roy Williams, among others, are making millions of dollars in endorsement deals with sneaker companies, getting their teams to wear sneakers that are produced by the companies. But the players are getting zilch. They're getting a scholarship, which certainly is a nice piece of change, but still nothing compared to what it could be or what it should be. So there's a debate now. Not only is there a debate about having 18-year-olds go right into the draft, go right into the NBA, but there's now a debate about whether college players should be paid. I, for one, believe they should, because they're generating a lot of money for their universities, and they deserve some return on that.
Well, there was an article, a big article in the last couple of pages in the Sunday Daily News on that, and the writer came out saying that definitely there should be some sort of payment to them, because that's what they're there for, basically, is to play basketball or football. And
it's clear that they risk their careers.
Oh, yeah.
As they did, as Zion Williamson did. Now, he's probably going to be okay, and he'll certainly be the number one pick in the draft. I'm sure the NBA scouts are convinced that this kid's quality is deserving of the number one pick. But that's a scary moment when he goes
it's
down.
Very funny because I fell out early. I think that was a 9 o'clock game last week, and I saw that when I checked the scores the next morning, I saw that North Carolina had beaten Duke fairly solidly, which surprised the heck out of me. I found this on the website. I went into the box score, and I saw Williamson had played 1 minute. So I said, what the heck is going on here? And I put on ESPN, and of course, in their usual the usual way they do things is they play it about 1,000 times. And then I understood what happened. Yeah, but how could a shoe fall apart like that?
George, I'm curious, how does Nike repair its reputation after an episode like this?
Well, that's the age-old question. To tell you the truth, I think that Nike will probably come up with some kind of a campaign in that the fact that they've strengthened the new shoe to prevent any problems, and maybe when Williamson comes out, if he does, they will name the shoe after him. Because they'll say, well, he helped us with the development because of what happened. I mean, it's a PR nightmare, and I can tell you, as aggressive as Nike is, they'll come up with something. There's just too much at stake. My opinion, though, is that they really were very fortunate because Williamson could have suffered a career-ending injury. I mean, I think that he came through in pretty good shape with the fact that he sprained his knee, but it certainly could have been, a torn ligament, or it could have been a blowout of his knee. Who knows? So I'm sure that Nike was wringing their hands, and they've got their product people, they got their marketing people. They're going to come up with some kind of a way to protect the brand name, because that, as I mentioned earlier, is one of the company's worst nightmares when you have a piece of equipment that fails on national television and causes an injury for probably the finest player in the country. I mean, it's just the fact is that I think that Nike is going to have to look at the way the shoe is built, because the players today are so much faster, bigger, stronger, and the product, as Ralph had mentioned, and I can tell you for a fact where the products are made offshore. They're made in the Far East. And we used to laugh because we had our shoes were made in a factory that on first floor made Adidas, second floor, or not Adidas, but first floor made Nike, second floor made Pro-Keds, third floor made Puma. I mean, that's just the way it was back then. Now, I can't say that's the way it is today, but it certainly is a severe public relations problem at the least for Nike, and it might have a severe, impact on their sales and earnings with young kids who watched that and saw that shoe went down. And, it's not that they're hiding the brand. The brand is right there. The shoe exploded with a Nike swoosh on it, and so they know that's a Nike shoe.
Yeah, that's tough.
Nike has a reputation to uphold, and they have to repair this debacle that occurred. But from my standpoint,
tell George is a marketer, though. He comes up with the great thing: just make a shoe in the kid's name. Boom.
Yeah, I think
that'll solve all the problems.
I think they will do something like that. But if you're the kid, I come back to the player. If you're the kid and you come out of this really with not a terrible injury, an injury, but he'll miss a few games, and then he'll be able to come back if he wants to. But if you're the kid, you have to be thinking to yourself, my God, I just dodged a bullet. Do I want to expose myself to another bullet? Do I want to go out there and take a chance on really getting seriously injured? Now, I think part of it is, and George touched on this, the athletes today are bigger, stronger. The torque he must have placed on that shoe probably was just too much for the shoe to endure, to bear. Do you make the shoe stronger? I don't know if you can. I'm not familiar with the manufacturer of sneakers, but how heavy, how strong can you make the shoe and still make it usable for a player and not feel like anchors on his feet, So these are problems that Nike faces and that Williamson has to consider. This is a major, major story. I know the New England Patriots won the Super Bowl again, but for me, the first 2 months of what year is this, 2019?
Very good.
2019, that's the major story. That's the biggest story in sports, that this kid's sneaker blew out and he was injured. And I'd love to hear what the rest of you guys think about that.
Well, of course, on ESPN, their main concern was whether or not he would be back in time for the conference tournament and the NCAA tournament.
Well, he'll probably recover.
I know, but that was their major concern. Not that the injury wasn't serious enough to keep him out. But I think you're right.
Zion Williamson.
Yeah.
If you're Zion Williamson, what are you thinking right now?
My career hung by a thread.
That's right.
Exactly.
You're
yeah.
Exactly right. So what do? Do you come back for the glory of Duke University to play in the ACC tournament and the NCAA tournament?
Well, if I was him, I'd say no. But who knows what other sort of pressures are being brought upon him to play.
Well, it's his choice.
I know, yeah, but they're using the BS because I watched them play Syracuse the other night, and the BS was, how he loves watching. Duke won a game that they fairly easily. They weren't supposed to win that easily, and the announcers were saying that, oh boy, he's sitting there and cheering and everything, and he's so happy for them, and he probably can't wait to get back out there. Who knows, what with these announcers, what they blab. But if I was in his shoes, there's no way I would come back to play for nothing.
And he's probably consulting with his family about this decision as well.
Yeah.
Well, let me put my 2 cents in again on this from experience. I can tell you, I think he's going to come back at least for the this year. Now, when it comes to next year, I think that's something else because there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be whispering in his ear. He's going to have to make that decision. Now, ESPN and the announcers, they can say about all the great things about him staying at Duke, and Coach K say the same thing. But, when it comes right down to it, he's got his life, he's got his career, he's got millions of dollars being waved at him. And I do believe, in my heart of hearts, I think he's going to play out the end of the year. Duke is going to, possibly play for the national championship. He's the great, player coming out. But next year, I don't think he's going to be there. I think he's going to be in the NBA as the number 1 draft pick. And I think that Nike or Adidas or somebody is going to come up with a shoe, and I have to think it's going to be Nike. Is going to call it the Zion Williamson, whatever it is. And just like they do with LeBron James and where they did with Michael Jordan, I mean, they can make, the Air Jordan. Now, there was an example looking at North Carolina. They have on their uniforms, I don't know whether you noticed that they've got the Air Jordan logo. They don't even have a Nike logo.
Oh, wow,
Air Jordan Well, Michael Jordan gets a piece of that action on every time that his logo is used, whether it be on a shoe or on a uniform, he gets a percentage. And Michael Jordan made millions and millions and millions of dollars off the court, not with his Chicago Bulls contract, which he was very substantial, but that he was being paid percentage-wise by Nike on the entire Air Jordan shoe and apparel line.
I think Zion Williamson is definitely a one and done. In fact, the Knicks fans, from what you hear on the radio, they're frothing at the mouth that he's going to wind up with them next season. But no matter who he winds up with in the NBA, he's out of there after this season.
Okay.
I think
Are
there's
the
no
Knicks
question
rumored
about
to
that.
be for sale? Is stolen?
Who knows?
Finally sell?
The Knicks were projected. It was in the Forbes and all over the media. The Knicks are the most valuable. Even the fact that they've been horrible for the last 5-6 years, they're the most valuable franchise in the NBA. They're worth about $4 billion.
Because they're a New York franchise.
Yeah, and basically, if he sells them, they were talking about building another arena someplace because the people who buy them are damned if they're going to pay Dolan money to play in Madison Square Garden.
Well,
I don't think that's going to happen between you and me and the telephone pole. That's not going to happen. Not in our lifetimes, anyway.
What kind of shoes did you wear when you played? David, what kind of shoes did you wear?
I wore Keds for the very simple reason that my aunt worked for U.S. Rubber, and she was able to get them very cheap for me every spring. So that was my endorsement.
Thank you, David.
You have a Chinese aunt, or this is beforehand?
This is long before.
They were made in this country at that time.
At that time, they were okay.
Right.
What did you wear, George? Before you?
Well, when I played in high school and college, I wore Converse, and
right.
That's what everybody was wearing back then. Now, when I started in the athletic shoe business as a business, I developed a staff of coaches. I hired former basketball players, coaches to sell for us, where Converse in the previous years had just hired really former NBA players, went around and shook hands and glad handed everybody, because just about every coach in the United States, had his team wearing Converse shoes. That's just the way it was. Well, when I got into the Pro Kids business, I started to get a few coaches, a few schools, and build some momentum, and people that I hired from a marketing point of view, we started to penetrate the market a little bit. And that was rewarding for me, because for many years people just told me, well, you're going to compete against Converse, you might as well forget about it because they own the market. Well, we came in, started to get a few shoes, a few people wearing our product. Adidas came in. They had some key players wearing their shoes. Puma came in with Walt Frazier and the Puma Clyde. So all of a sudden, Converse, had some real competition. They responded by coming up with a leather basketball shoe with Julius Erving called the Dr. J, and that gave them quite a foothold in the NBA and in colleges where they could afford a more expensive shoe. But at what they call retail, kids just couldn't, at that time, they couldn't spend $50 on a pair of basketball shoes. They could spend $10 on a pair of canvas shoes. And today, if you look at it, now, kids are going out and spending a couple $100 on a pair of shoes. So it's a little bit of a different world, but it's big business, and it's one that I always enjoyed because I had a background in sports, and I was able to, parlay my background into a business career, and I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. Well, I wore high tops, and it said Chuck Taylor on the side.
Right.
Exactly.
That was Converse, Hal.
Converse. Okay.
That was Converse Chuck Taylor All-Stars. Absolutely correct.
Yep.
And I remember the Celtics, who were just the cat's meow in terms of basketball teams. They all wore Converse, and they wore low tops. I remember Russell wearing low tops like it was yesterday.
Ralph, they did. Converse wore black. The Celtics wore black. Yeah. Low-cut Converse All-Stars. Later on, they went to green. Matter of fact, we had JoJo White, who just passed away not too long ago, wearing one of our new suede basketball shoes, and we made him in Celtic green. So they went from all black when Russell was playing to the various colors that the players used to wear, in particular to match their uniform color. So the Celtics had green. I think it was the Sixers, and they wore red or blue, and the Bulls were wearing red. That's just the way they, made the progression from an all-black or an all-white basketball shoe into colored shoes and into different type of construction. Pro kids, we came out with a suede basketball shoe to compete against the Puma Clyde, and we were very effective in doing it. And what Hal mentioned earlier about the weight and the durability, well, at one point, now today the technology is probably different, but at one point basketball shoes were fairly sturdy, but they were heavy. So all the shoe companies were trying to find a lighter material to use to lighten up the product, because the guys who were wearing them wanted something, as Hal said, they don't want anchors on their feet. They want to be able to fly through the air or run up and down the court as easily as they can. And weight is a major factor in an athletic shoe.
George, did the engineers take advice from you guys who talked to the coaches and the players and got their opinions and what have you? Did that transcend to the next shoe, or were they just winging it?
No, Ralph, that's a very good question. They would take our input. The problem as David, when he mentioned about what he wore, back then when his aunt worked for Keds, we had production and we had manufacturing people in this country. So if we had a problem or we had something that could be done, we could get with them right away and make a change. When the companies went offshore with like Nike and so forth, and Puma and Pro Kids, when they went offshore, your lead time, what they call lead times now, from a product development to the actual product on the shelf, is like a 6-month lead time. So, you might look at a shoe and say, hey, there's a problem with this shoe. Well, by the time it got to the quality control people in a factory in the Far East and got back to you, it might be 6 months down the road and really too late. And to give an example of that, I'll tell you from firsthand experience, we came up with it's not basketball, we came up with a new baseball shoe. And they gave it to me and they said, what do you think? And I looked at it, and the first thing I said to them, I said, you know what? Did anybody ever test this shoe? Oh, no, we just came up with the idea. I said, well, I'll tell you right now, the front spike is too long because you'll get what they call hanging a spike. You've got to make the front spike on a baseball shoe lower than the back spikes. That's just the way a baseball shoe is supposed to be made. And nobody ever told them that until I did, and they looked at me and they said, "What the hell do you know about it?" I said, "Well, let me tell you what I know about it. My dad played ball. I know what a baseball shoe is supposed to be, and you guys are sitting in the factory and you don't know." So that's just, I don't mean to get on my high horse, but that was just an example, Ralph, the kind of thing that you're talking about.
All right, that is a good example. David Hubler.
George, I have a question, George. When did the evolution come that they went from the high tops to the low-cut basketball shoe? How did that evolve?
Well, Hal, let me tell you from what I remember. When I was in high school, we all wore high tops. When I got to college, when I was playing at Rutgers, we started wearing low cuts because the players felt that the low cut gave them a little more quickness because it was later. Now, the downside of that is that you lose a certain amount of support. So in college, you can have, trainers, and I had my own ankles taped before every ball game. In high school, you don't have that luxury. So guys would wear high tops, and you'd lace them up, and they'd feel more secure. But when you got to college, you wanted to wear a low cut because that's where a lot of the players started in the NBA, what Ralph is talking about with like Bill Russell wearing a low-cut basketball shoe. That's what they started wearing. So kids, and I've mentioned this before, kids see what players are wearing, and that starts a certain trend, and they move from, in the old days, watching George Mikins of the world in high-top basketball shoes. All of a sudden now you got the next generation, the Bill Russells, wearing low-cuts. So that's what the kids are going to wear.
Remind me again, who was Chuck Taylor?
Chuck Taylor had been a basketball coach in Indiana, and for whatever the reason, he got involved with Converse, and he would go around to basketball camps and high schools and colleges and talk about basketball shoes. And so Converse, decided, because he was such a popular figure in basketball, not so much from a retail point of view, but from a basketball point of view, that they would name their product line Chuck Taylor All-Stars. And that's where it was. When it first started, they were Converse, and then they became Chuck Taylor All-Stars, and they used the Chuck Taylor. It was like a name on the top. It was curved with a Chuck Taylor and then the Converse star. So they all became known as Chuck Taylor All-Stars. And today, kids, women, young girls will buy Converse not as a basketball shoe. They'll buy it as a fashion shoe, and they call them Chucks. So
right.
that's yes, that's the way the basketball business, where Converse had been really a performance brand, now today you look up newspapers and look in catalogs, and you'll see Chucks for sale, and their kids, the girls, are wearing them different colors, pink, orange, red, black, whatever it is, but they're low cut Chucks basketball shoes that they're wearing as a street shoe.
Was the Jordan shoe the first really high-priced product in the line?
Yeah, I'd say it was, Hal. Adidas had what they call a Superstar, which was expensive, but the Air Jordan was a huge marketing, bonanza for Nike. Now, Converse had a leather basketball shoe, the Dr. J, and that was really good, but Converse never really marketed it the way that Nike did. I mean, Nike just took that whole concept because of Michael Jordan and how great he was, and turned it into an Air Jordan line, and that's what the kids were going after. And who knows? I think they're up now $150, $200 a pair. Kids are creating mayhem to wear it because it's become such a status symbol.
Yeah. I don't know if that's such a good thing, but it is what it is.
I don't either, Hal. I agree with you. But unfortunately, that's the way kids are today. I mean, they're very much peer influence, and you're in a situation where you can be a great kid, but all of a sudden, if you're walking down the street with a wonderful pair of Air Jordans on, you might be taking your life in your own hands.
That's right.
Yeah. It really is a crazy world socially. But Hey, listen, Hal, I just want to make note of the fact that you've written your last column for a while. You're going on the DL.
Yes, I am.
We want to wish you the absolute best. You have some surgery coming up. Tell us you're going to be okay.
Well, they tell me this is routine surgery, but it's not routine for me. You know,
right.
The guys do it. Oh yeah, there's nothing to it. Well, until I have it, I'll let you know afterwards if there was nothing to it. You know,
right.
But I have to go through it, and I will. And it's complicated by it's a cataract surgery, which a lot of people have, laser surgery, and but it's complicated by the fact that I have some retinal problem. So I have to deal with that before I deal with the cataract surgery. So it's just a little complicated. But I hope to be back in business, in a month or so, 2 months maybe, and writing again. And I hope to be on your show each week, even while I'm recuperating. Just that I won't be able
come up
to
with
write
good topics, even if we don't have your column. And I just want to wish you a quick recovery on behalf of everybody at Comfortably.
Amen.
Yeah, absolutely, Hal. You know what I think about it, and I mentioned to you, I have somewhat of a similar problem, but the fact is that, what you're going to go through, you'll make it fine. Just be patient, listen to the doctor, and follow his orders, and you'll be back in good shape.
Yep, you will. You will.
Okay. As usual, it was a terrific show. Before I close, I just want to ask George about the success or lack of success that they had with the Kaepernick campaign. How did that go?
Well, I have to, and maybe Hal, and maybe Alan, maybe David. I mean, I haven't really heard, to tell you the truth. I mean, what Hal was talking about with this latest thing with Nike is sort of overshadowed any, the success that, or lack of success that Nike might have had. As far as Kaepernick, I mean, he's going to be laughing all the way to the bank, because there's no question, he challenged the NFL and he won. And they're going to make it good for him. And as far as Nike, I really can't tell you. I think whatever impact that Kaepernick had, good or bad, the last week or so has certainly been overshadowed by this Zion Williamson thing.
True.
I think that Nike may have legitimized his case a little bit. When the NFL saw that a company like Nike was giving him the attention, I think they realized they were up against a losing battle. I mean, this guy was a Super Bowl quarterback, and maybe 30, 40 quarterbacks have been signed since he played. It was a no-brainer that he got the money. And let's remind everybody that you don't get paid money if you're mocking the flag or this, that, the other thing. It wasn't that. He was protesting social injustice. And it's that they brought the flag into it, or they made it a patriotic thing.
But Trump did because the NFL wouldn't let him in.
Yes. Did that, and so that concludes another show.
Just one short thing. What does everybody think about Robert Kraft now? What they're going to do to him, if anything?
Well, if he
wasn't,
wasn't
saying there's no fool like an old fool.
Right. If he wasn't involved in the actual trafficking of underage women, if he had no idea of that whatsoever, then it really shouldn't have even come to light. I mean, it's an old man, and
wait a second, he's not that old.
Well, I don't.
I mean,
he's our age.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of envy the guy.
Too. If I want to go out and just do, that's in this country, just the way sex is looked at and what have you. But on the other hand, as Tevye would have said, if he was involved in any way in trafficking these women, he should be made an example of. No question about that. But just the fact that he went out and had a good time.
His wife died a couple of years ago. They've been married for years, so I guess.
I guarantee you the league is going to suspend him because they have to. They suspended Jim Irsay when he was caught DWI.
Yeah. And
they suspended the Benedetto over something or other. So they'll suspend him. I don't know for how long, but they have to. It's an image thing, and the league. No league is more concerned with its image than the National Football League.
That's true.
That's true, yeah.
No league needs to be more concerned with their image than the National Football League.
That's right.
Let me tell you, they've had an awful lot of domestic dispute cases, guys with guns shooting their own ankles or thighs off.
They just suspended this Dallas Cowboy lineman who had been busted a couple of times previously for drug possession and was reinstated this year over a lot of objection. They just suspended him indefinitely because he failed another drug test.
Well,
anybody who couldn't foresee this was very short-sighted.
Absolutely. Anything in closing, David Hubler?
No, I was just thinking about Kraft. I thought with the money that guy has, he could get a busload of these girls, take them to his house. No one would know. I mean, why is he going out to some strip mall? That seems so strange.
Because they think they can get away with anything when you're that well off.
It's an attack of stupidity. It's arrogance, and it's stupid. And he's going to pay the price. He's going to get himself suspended, I'll guarantee you.
Oh, yeah. Oh, no question about it.
Okay. George, anything in closing from you?
No, I really appreciate this opportunity to talk about the athletic shoe business, and it's a little out of my element when talking about Kraft. I mean, I think I agree with Hal. I mean, I think he's going to get suspended, but, that's going to be probably a slap on the wrist, and all of a sudden all will be good. But, the fact is that, my own opinion, there is stupid things that are done, and who knows? I mean, guys think that they're not going to get caught, and they do get caught. I mean, you look at the Smollett or whatever his name is. I mean, that thing in Chicago is absolutely absurd.
Yeah.
But that kind of stuff happens, and you look at it and you say, "Oh my God, what the hell's wrong with these people?" But that's the nature of the beast sometimes. And what Alan said, I mean, they think they're above the law; they can do whatever they want, and sometimes it comes back to bite them.
Yeah, they say that he's up now for the Gary Hart Award.
Yeah, that's a good example, David. Absolutely correct.
I just want to leave you guys with one thought.
It's the coveted Gary Hart Award.
Yes.
Yeah, a rookie card. I saw this on ESPN. A rookie card of Tom Brady just went for $400,000.
A rookie football card goes for $400,000.
I don't know any details of how scarce it is or any of that business. I'm sure that will come out. But somebody paid $400,000 for it.
It wasn't you, was it, Alan?
No, are you kidding me?
Oh, shucks, you guys, it was me. God. That's the kind of stuff. I don't want to get off on this, but, when you look at that Honus Wagner card, baseball card, $2.5 million for a piece of card.
I have it. The only problem with the one I have is it's a reprint.
Yeah, right.
What the cardboard's printed on.
The only problem that I have with my last name is you spell it with a K rather than a C. If it were with a C, it would be Tyko from the trains or from the
that's it.
thing.
Tyko trains are with a T.
$5 million? That's the only problem.
I have a Bowman's rookie year Mickey Mantle card.
Yeah. What kind of shape is it?
It's a real one. It's in good shape.
What kind of shape is it?
It's in good shape.
It's worth money, yeah.
I know
Hey,
it.
you can retire. David, you can retire.
No, the Bowman card isn't worth nearly as much as the Topps card.
That's still worth a pretty good penny. That's,
yeah, well, I have it in
51
the
Bowman, yeah.
deposit box. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, don't sell. Say it ain't so. Don't.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
What a pleasure. Thank you again. Most of you will be around on Sunday morning.
Yeah.
Hal, you always have that standing invitation to join us on Sundays as well. And again, I wish you the quickest of recovery and good health.
Thank you.
Love and luck.
Thank you.
Take care.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye, everybody.
Guys.
Good night.
Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. Adios. The proceeding was a Comfortably Zoned Radio Network production. Thank you for listening.